Hi, everybody. Welcome. It is Mile High Sports today. I'm Sean Drotar. That's Nate Lundy. Happy Friday. You made it. It's the weekend. It's going to be beautiful. Tons of football. I'll just tell you right off the bat, if you're looking for football. You can't go to the Broncos game because they're in Las Vegas. But
you can.
Well, it's true. But
what do you mean
easily.
I can't go to the
Not
I can
easily.
They have these things. Sean, have you heard of them? Airplanes.
Yeah.
They're going to be the new thing.
That's true. I think that's true. And you can't go to the Colorado Buffaloes game in Kansas. Of course you can. But I mean,
that game's at Arrowhead.
Yeah, exactly. In Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas. And obviously, if you can't head there because you're not made of money or don't have a private jet, you should come down to number 38 in Rhino.
You got to come down and enjoy
the watch party because it's going to be a show.
And I'd like to also remind everybody, I know that Anilo has mentioned this, get there a little early.
Kickoff's at 1:30, so you don't have to get up early. It's not a 10 a.m.
There's a couple things you want to get there a little bit early for two reasons. One, the SCO show will be doing the pregame show live from number 38. The other reason is because if it's like some of the other games that we have done here recently, especially when you've got some nice weather, you're going to want to get there early so that you grab yourself a nice little front row seat to the game.
It's supposed to be 60.
That's
at
so
kickoff.
Lovely.
And you basically get one of those big old, what are they, like the Adirondack chairs where you basically got your own like lounger out on the patio, and then you can watch it on the big screen like right in front of your face. Yeah. Players are like larger than life, so come out and
that's going to be a lot of fun. But CU's got the game tomorrow 1:30.
1:30.
I'm just going to tell you right now, try to get there, get there a little bit before noon.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm throwing that out there is because the food at 38 is fantastic. So you can grab lunch while you're there as well.
Get your order before the rush.
Yep. Get that and get yourself situated. And obviously there's some great college football tomorrow. Ohio State, Indiana at 10 a.m. top 5 matchup. And that's going to be absolutely spectacular. Huge implications for the Big Ten. In that particular contest, you can get there early. You can watch the tail end of that game, or maybe get there in time to see the whole thing. But you can get there, get the tail end of that one, roll right into KU and CU. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna go down there. I'm not hosting the SCO show, so I don't have to work. I'm just gonna show up and watch the game.
Food and drinks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. So come on down and join us.
Two of my favorite.
Two everyone's favorite things, right? I mean,
not necesser's in that order.
If you're human, I mean, you like both those things in general. The Denver Broncos.
Come down and see if Danny Bailey and Anilo Pirro get schnockered.
Yeah.
Again.
One is the tall blonde one. One is the short brunette
Danny's over here nodding. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, no lies detected, right?
I mean, like once my part is over,
once we produce the pregame show, Danny goes from being an executive producer to being a Buffs fan, and it is like that.
I'm going to be right there with him.
It is like the moment he goes, and you're clear.
Yeah.
Which is what he tells us when the broadcast is done and all that. Then we're good to go. Then you got Alex Becker over here. Alex is just wrapping up a bunch of work over on the Mile High Sports Radio side. I don't know that Alex knew what zip code he was in the last time I saw him at number 38.
Yeah.
I don't know if Alex. So anyway, guys, come down because the MHS team, we have a great time at number 38.
What a
Holy
huge day
cow.
of college football. It's going to be a blast.
The company credit card charge the last time we were there.
Hey.
Whoa. Y'all settle down, okay?
No promises. Anyway, the Denver Broncos will be
in Vegas. Speaking of running up the company credit card, let's talk about Vegas.
Absolutely. The Broncos have not swept the Raiders since 2017. They have not won in Vegas ever against the Raiders, but they are favored by 6 points. As you suggested earlier in the week, that line has gone up in Denver's favor, and that's partially because I guess I'm going to call it here up. The Raiders may be sinking for Shedeur.
It's in betting terms, the number has been steamed, is what has happened. This line opened at 3. It has doubled to 6, as Sean just said, and at some places it's at 6.5. So hopefully you grabbed it early in the week, like I recommended to you. But yeah, this line is moving a lot.
Yeah. And worth noting before we get into this game, of course, the Denver Broncos had their game against the Chargers flexed. It will go from December 22nd, the Sunday that it was expected to go, now to Thursday night football on the 19th. That'll be the Broncos second Thursday night football game, and it will be their second on the road. That's actually not something that teams have to do unless that team approves it. Nobody has to have two Thursday night football games on the road. The Broncos had to sign off on it. They did, and that there's reasons for that. One, it's great to get the national attention. That's not what the Broncos are worried about. Every NFL team gets national attention. There's a little bit of strategy in here because we've talked about it. The Chargers are going to be really hard to catch. Realistically, when you look at the schedule, when you look at the fact they've already beaten the Broncos, I know you look at it in the schedule and say, but they're right behind them, Sean, they could catch them. I get that, but they're going to be really hard to catch. And if you're the Broncos right now in the second year of your rebuild under Sean Payton, you just want to get in. You're looking at that 7th seed and say, how can we lock down the 7th seed? Anything past that is gravy. And this works because what happens is the Broncos were going to have to play the Bengals in their second to last game of the season, of which the Bengals are on life support, but still in it. And their schedule's relatively soft. They could be in it till the end. They were going to have to play the Bengals on the short week, right? They were going to have to play the Bengals there. Well, now by flexing it, the Broncos get a week and change before playing the Bengals. So is it a disadvantage for the Broncos when you're talking about the Chargers game? It is. But if you're not worried about catching the Chargers and you are worried about keeping the Bengals out of the spot that you currently hold, if you're the Broncos, now making you being the more rested team against the Bengals is actually to your advantage. So the Broncos look at that. They sign off on it. They go ahead and take that game and they go to Thursday Night Football. They'll do that in SoFi Stadium out in LA. But then it means that game against the Bengals, they're second to last of the season. They will be the more rested team. And remember, their bye hasn't even come up as well. So the Broncos are basically making sure that the opportunity for those last 4 games, they get the bye before the last 4 games. Then they'll also get a break before the Colts, one of the teams that's on their tail. And they'll get a little longer break, not a full bye week, but a couple extra days against the Bengals, one of the other teams on their tails. The other 2 teams late there, the Chargers and Chiefs, the teams that they're chasing. So the Broncos basically make this move to fortify their hold on number 7. And it's really smart.
I got to give you some credit, man. You put a lot more thought into that than I would have expected.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
The strategy involved.
All I gave a crap about was that I didn't have to watch a bleep Thursday night game.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. That was really all. I mean, last night was a lot of fun.
Oh, any snow games are a blast.
Oh, I know, but the fact that it went from, hey, how you doing, to I can't see the field in less than a quarter.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the third quarter, it was like, yeah, it's pretty good, but we know, it's late. We get it. And by the end of the third quarter, you're like, hey, who's at quarterback right now? I can't read the number.
I was looking at some of the all 22 of that this morning.
Spectacular.
And, it's the coach's film from up overhead, right? Basically like the top of the stadium, the luxury box or whatever. You can't really see the field.
No, it's fantastic.
I mean, the coach's film is basically useless.
Oh, it's spectacular. And that was what was so amazing was that, I'm telling you, they were about, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes into the third quarter.
Football in the snow.
And then all of a sudden,
it's so
the
great.
lake effect snow in Cleveland went nuts.
When that comes in, it comes in.
It was
putting more thought
great
into it, though, Nate.
Yeah, you really I don't want to say you overthought it, but you kind of did.
Well, I hope the Broncos thought about it the way I did.
That's why you don't have any hair.
Do you remember the game? Do you remember
your
the game?
Your brain is putting out too much energy.
It's radiating too much heat.
And your hair was just like, we're out.
But what was the game that got flexed out? Do you remember? It was Browns at Bengals. So the Bengals were gonna have to take on the Browns on a short week, but it's the Browns. Now, granted, the Steelers are going, yeah, it's the Browns. But the Bengals were going to do it at home in Cincinnati.
Jameis Winston out here doing snow angels to celebrate.
Right. But now you basically, the short week that the Bengals were going to be okay with given the opponent, they lose. Right. And now they have to face a rested Broncos team. And so for the Broncos, it's an unusual move, but it's a good move. And it does. And look, the simple fact is the Broncos are in the mix of getting their games flexed because they're playoff relevant. And that's the most exciting part of the whole thing. But let's not put the cart ahead of the horse because you still have to take care of the Raiders. And I know the Raiders are borderline tanking. You're not worried at all.
Well, I'm always worried because anything can happen in the NFL.
Right.
Okay. It's always a concern.
Broncos have literally never won in that stadium.
It is always a concern. But the Raiders are in tank mode. and Antonio Pierce is going to be looking for a job. Okay.
More than likely, yes.
I'm telling you right now, there is no way. I mean, I can't say no way because Mark Davis. I mean,
he's Mark Davis.
He's Mark Davis.
He's going to do things.
He's Mark Davis.
When you have a Dennis the Menace haircut, you can't count on anything.
He's unpredictable. But here's what I will say: if he's got even an ounce of the football intelligence that his father had, he will recognize that if you are going to draft Shedeur or in that vein, right? Like maybe somebody steals Shedeur and you've got to grab Cam Ward. I don't know. I'm sorry, but Antonio Pierce should not be your head coach if you decide to go all in on one of these young quarterbacks. Period. End of story.
You're going to want a guy with more experience.
You need a guy with experience. You need a guy that understands some offense, and that has to be your priority. I know what this team did under Antonio Pierce at the end of last season, and they rallied around him and all. I get it. I get it.
They did that with Rich Bisaccia a couple years ago.
Exactly. What you need to do is make sure that if it's going to be one of these guys, you're going to have the right coach in place to make sure that happens. So I think Antonio Pierce is going to be looking for a job. So you put all of those things together. The Broncos right now are the better team. And full stop. They are the better team. Can anything happen in the NFL? Of course it can. But I also told you earlier this week, I guarantee you there are going to be more Broncos fans in the stands than there are Raiders on Sunday afternoon. Take it to the bank.
Yeah, I think there's a
there will be so much orange and blue in that stadium.
As Pat Bowen would call it when the Broncos first changed the uniforms, I expect the stands will be predominantly orange more than anything else. But looking at after the Broncos last win over the Falcons, in which Bo Nix was named AFC Offensive Player of the Week, and then of course Rookie Player of the Week, because why wouldn't you in that case? But there have been kind of a push on multiple national outlets to kind of discount ESPN, The Athletic, a few others, to discount Nix's performance, in part because 2 of the 4 touchdowns were passes behind the line of scrimmage to Marvin Mims and to Troy Franklin, and make the argument that it's not really Nix, it's Sean Payton's play calling, and Nix is just doing the work. I look at it, Nate, and I wonder, who cares? I mean, I know we have a 24/7 news cycle and everyone's got to come up with something, but I mean, how many times do we have this argument? Is it John Elway or is it Mike Shanahan? Is it Joe Montana or is it Bill Walsh? Is it Tom Brady or is it Bill Belichick? The answer, anytime you ever have a successful team like that, is it's both, because all you have to find out is what happens. How did Bill Belichick do after Tom Brady? Now, granted, Bill Walsh happened to land Steve Young, but you don't normally go Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer. But after that, things change as well, and George Seifert took over. How Tom Landry do after Roger Staubach? How'd Mike Shanahan do after John Elway? Never hit those heights. When you have those pairings, it's supposed to work like that. And we don't know if Sean Payton and Bo Nix are going to be the same as Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And the truth is they probably won't, because the odds on that are rather unlikely. But I find it interesting that there is this weird sort of idea to discount a little bit of what Nix did because his head coach and play caller put him in a good position to succeed. We're not talking about that in Washington with Jaden Daniels. Is this a little bit of Sean Payton is, well, let's face it, antagonistic at many times towards the media and to sort of the NFL internal circles in general. And Bo Nix, of course, the narrative would be, wow, the Broncos might have screwed up. 5 quarterbacks were picked in front of him. How can he maybe be the best one? I mean, where do you think this comes from?
I don't know.
It's kind of weird, though, right?
It is.
Instead of you having these people going, wow, look at all these young quarterbacks coming into the league. Drake May looks good. Jaden Daniels looks really good. Bo Nix looks good.
I don't trust Drake May.
I don't trust him either. But so far, so good. I think Caleb Williams, I think, has been a bit of a disappointment.
Caleb Williams is a function of the fact that the Bears organization will not get rid of Eberflus.
Right. And their line looks like guys like you and me blocking.
It's not. It is not Caleb Williams. It is the organization, the coach, and the line in front of him. It is not. I am convinced it's not Caleb Williams.
Well, why not celebrate and say, look, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, even Drake May's playing well. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy's going to miss the season. I mean, why not say, wow, what a terrific class of quarterbacks. I mean, this is a tremendous amount of fun to watch. Look at this new blood. But this week has kind of been about the national media going, I don't buy Bo Nix's 300-plus passing yards, 4 touchdown passes, 140-plus passer rating, which only 2 rookie quarterbacks have ever done.
Here's the thing I would say to this. I mean, number one,
who cares? The scoreboard.
Who gives a bleep? Okay. I mean, scoreboard. That's where you start. Secondly, I liken this to all of the bitching and moaning that has taken place over the last 5 years about what the national media does or doesn't think of Nikola Jokic.
Right.
Who cares what they think? Who cares? Scoreboard.
And some of this, Nate, is, and it's with Jokic, it's with Nix. There is so much of an industry built around, especially regarding the draft, especially we're talking about rookies, around scouting, right? Mock draft scouting, like it feels so much of the NFL's offseason drive, and it does so in other leagues too. But a lot of these scouts do this, that are scouting the draft, are ones making the same breakdowns during the season, and a lot of those analysts look at it. And the idea that Bo Nix was the sixth quarterback taken and say that, okay, well, that was, that we had him as a second or third round pick and think the Broncos are reaching. They don't like really eating crow. And so it's hard for a lot of folks to admit. They're like, okay, maybe we read this one wrong. Not this program where Nate and I repeatedly went like, the Broncos aren't going to get to 6 wins. Whoops. We blew it. And you know what? We're actually happy because Nate's a season ticket holder. I'm born and raised here. You think we don't want the Broncos to do well? Great. Delighted to be wrong. And I have no problem saying we missed it because we didn't think that Nix and Peyton would come along quite this quickly.
No. And they have, and that's a good thing. Don't complain. Don't complain. But at the same time, don't complain if the national media is hung up on other things.
Oh, yeah.
Please remember that the media's job is to have ratings.
Correct.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason Stephen A. Smith has a job is because 50% of the people love him and 50% of the people hate him. That's what you want. If you're ESPN, that's what you want.
I've never figured out why, if you really hate somebody, you keep watching somebody.
Because it is proven. It is proven and proven and proven. If people like to be able to react. The reason Stephen A. has a job, the reason Skip Bayless had a job, the reason a lot of these guys have a job is because their goal, very similar to the odds makers in Vegas, is to find a way to get 50% of the people to fall on one side and 50% of the people to fall on the other. That is how you do success in the media. And you know how you get clicks? Pissing people off.
Right. But it also means you're inconsistent. You're gonna flip flop. You're gonna waver.
You're going to. But the problem is that the vast majority of fans are not
catching it every day, and they
are not gonna pay attention to it.
They don't notice how
anybody that knows me, that's been around me, or has ever talked to me about sports media, understands that I do not like Colin Cowherd. I don't. There's a history there, though. I've worked with Colin. I've been around Colin. That's the reason I'm not a fan of him on television, is because I'm frankly not a fan of the person. Okay. But I also recognize that Colin is really good at what he does.
Sure.
He's very good at riling people up and having an opinion. And so he's had the success in media because of that. That's how you find success. That's how some of the people that are across town get clicks and things like that. They're just here to piss you off. They want you to react. Your job is to decide as a fan whether you want to react or not. So I don't really give a damn whether ESPN, the NFL Network, Fox, CBS, or anybody else thinks that Bo Nix is good. I'm a fan of the blue and orange, and this team has a quarterback.
And who thinks Bo Nix is good? The NFL.
There you go.
That's why he's won those awards. The NFL, his colleagues, the people that know knows game. They know he's good. The Broncos need to take care of business, though. You somehow blow it against the Raiders, and everything changes. And that's why we're going to take a quick look around the NFL and around what's going to happen in Week 12. But I want to remind you that as we age, each of us finds things about ourselves that we'd almost certainly like to improve, right? For everybody's different. Maybe you want to lose weight, or maybe you want to get better sleep, or you're looking for more energy or focus during your day or after it as well. And any of those things can be accomplished through a lot of different therapies. And that's where our friends at Skin City Wellness can help. Their focus is on empowering their patients on their own healthcare journey and optimizing their health the way they want to. With Skin City Wellness, you start with patient-specific analysis via blood work, and then their trained medical professionals consult on a one-on-one basis. That provides patients with complete transparency regarding their health concerns, and also their health goals. With Skin City Wellness, you're building the foundation for optimized health and longevity with cutting-edge medical therapies that help your body perform as it should. The ones you'd expect: hormone replacement, replacement for sure, but they focus on semaglutide and GLP-1 therapies, peptides, NAD+, and more. Each of these therapies can help their patients burn fat, assist with weight loss, optimize sleep cycles, or enhance cognitive executive functions. Whatever you're looking for, the point is that what you're looking for and what your body needs, they will work with you to accomplish. It's not an all-at-once kind of thing. It's trying to figure out what's best for you the way you want to. So check them out online today at skincitywellness.com. Mention Mile High Sports and get $50 off your initial blood work and consultation. So what are you waiting for? Take control of your health your way with our friends at Skin City Wellness. And Nate, we obviously saw the beginning of week 12, or we got to see some of it that wasn't obscured by snow out in Cleveland, where Cleveland knocks off the Steelers, and George Pickens is very, very salty about it, as seems to be his want.
Yeah, but that's just the life as a wide receiver. T.O. started it, and it went from there.
I guess so. But the Steelers lose. Of course, the Broncos aren't really dealing with them when you're talking about playoff position. Interesting news, of course, the NFL. Daniel Jones, we talked about the, how do you say it? Is this getting close to the season? The Scrooge-like tendencies of the New York Giants, who have decided they would bench Daniel Jones because he, much like Russell Wilson, has an injury guarantee, and decided we don't want to risk him getting hurt because our team is bad and he might get hurt.
Correct.
And we have to pay for that. So they go ahead and demote him, and you figure backup Drew Lock, who had served the whole season as the backup, would probably take over. Wrong again, because Drew Lock has a couple of incentives that he could conceivably hit that would add up to, drumroll this, not the $23 million that Daniel Jones might get an injury guarantee, but $500,000. And $500,000 in incentives for the Giants is enough for them to say, nah, we're going to go to Tommy DeVito and see if we can play that thing with his agent with the fedora on the sideline again, see how well that works.
Yeah.
But they don't wait. They release Daniel Jones today.
Good.
Daniel Jones is going to clear waivers because no sane team is going to pick up that contract and all those risks and become a free agent. You know who the Giants play next? A team without a quarterback out in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
The starting Cooper Rush. I don't think that Daniel Jones is an amazing quarterback, but I think he's better than Cooper Rush. And I think, quite frankly, even with the simplified system, the Cowboys could sign him and play him on Thanksgiving against the Giants and probably win. And I hope that happens.
Oh, it'd be fun. I would enjoy that quite a bit.
Might be the only way
good for them for letting him go. They're going to eat $20 million. Is what they're going to wind up eating.
And then there's a little cap next year.
Yeah, they'll eat that. They'll eat that right away. But you know what? Good for them. Here's what's going to happen with Daniel Jones. He's going to get signed by somebody. He's already got that big payday that happened. Now he's going to spend the next 8 years holding the clipboard
for 5-6
million and making plenty of money.
I mean, think of if you're Daniel Jones, this is a good spot. It really is. Yeah. I know everyone wants to start, right? But let's say the Cowboys don't pick him up. You know who had their quarterback going for an MRI and they think will be okay, but still has Super Bowl aspirations? How about the San Francisco 49ers, who don't have a backup that they love?
Oh, I don't think Kyle Shanahan's going to touch Daniel Jones.
I wouldn't think so, but there are going to be options, and a lot of teams are going to look at their backup and realize if you're not signing him to that deal, you basically get him for whatever you sign him for. There are going to be opportunities this year, I think, for him to back somebody up, and I will give the Giants credit for that. At least they just pulled the Band-Aid off and didn't make him ride the pine for 6 weeks.
I would have done the same thing.
Let him go, and the Broncos maybe should have done that with Russell Wilson. Who knows? But
yeah, they probably should have. Some fun games this weekend, though. Obviously, the Giants will go with DeVito. They'll do that against Tampa Bay and the Bucs. I've got a bet for you in that one as well. But a couple of things that I like to be able to do for you guys on a Friday. My favorite touchdown guys for this weekend. I've got 3 of them. And that is Jalen Hurts, Joe Mixon, and Brian Robinson. Please note on the screen there the BR. That is Brian, not Bijan. Brian Robinson. And what's interesting is I'm not so sure that I don't like both Brian Robinson and Joe Mixon. If you want to also place a bet on them to score 2 or more touchdowns, I do not dislike that. If you're not paying attention, Houston will be taking on Tennessee. Tennessee has allowed backs to do that against them. As a matter of fact, the matchup that Mixon has, I think, is very favorable. If you look at Tennessee, they've given up over the course of the season 13 touchdowns to the running back position, 7 of them on the ground, 6 of them through the air. And we know that Joe Mixon is capable of doing either of those things. Brian Robinson, in his particular place, folks, it's the damn Cowboys.
They gave up 3 rushing touchdowns to Joe Mixon.
Do I need to say more than that? Washington is playing Dallas. Oh, and by the way, they're playing in DC. Then the last one for Jalen Hurts. Here's why I want to throw this one out there for you. Jalen Hurts has 2 rushing touchdowns in 3 straight road games. And as a matter of fact, he's got at least 1 rushing touchdown in every road game this season, except for the game against the Saints. That's it. Other than that, he's calling his own number frequently enough. And it doesn't matter whether it's the tush push or not. It's happening with Jalen Hurts. And so that's the reason why I like him on the anytime touchdown. I will throw this out there for you. If you put all 3 of those guys together into a parlay, Brian Robinson, Joe Mixon, and Jalen Hurts, the payday is plus 318 over at DraftKings. A couple more things that I like. Let's talk about Bucky Irving in that matchup against the Giants for Tampa. There's 2 plays that I like with Bucky. Take the over on his yards. Just take the over on his yards, which I think right now is at like 51.5. I'm not even so sure that I'm not going to ladder that up to 60 and take the 60 or more for him as well. I think they're going to run all over the Giants this weekend. So I will do that. But my favorite one for Bucky Irving, his over-under for his longest rush is 14.5. Okay. At DraftKings, that is a minus 135, but at BetMGM, it is a minus 115. You're getting 20 cents worth of value if you do it over at BetMGM. Why do I like that? Courtesy of Jared Henderson over at Covers. In the last 3 games, just 3, the Giants have given up 11 rushes of 15 yards or more in 3 games. Their defensive front sucks. So the Bucky Irving is absolutely going to go to town against them. And then I'm going to throw this out here. I understand that Detroit has been wiping other teams behind, right? Just spanking them. But Indy is 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 games. They may not know who the hell their quarterback is as they go back and forth between Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson and all of that, but they're covering and they're at home against Detroit. So I understand the idea of how good the Detroit Lions are. They've won a couple of games this season by massive points, as you know. But I'm just sitting back going, I can see what Indy's doing here. And I think they're going to try like hell to keep Jared Goff and that offense off the field. So you may see a lot of rushing in that particular contest. They may not have success, but they are a 7.5 point dog. If you're one of those people that believes in that hook that comes into play with the touchdown, that could be something to think about. Again, the Colts 7-2 against the spread. I go back to what I said at the start of this half hour. I really hope you listened to me when I told you to take the Broncos -3 because now it's -6.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to get to 7 or more by the time they kick off. I think the Raiders are in full tank mode, and I think Bo and Sean and Cortland and Javonte and Audric, and I think they are going to take it to them and finally get their first win inside the Darth Vader Dome of Sin City.
Well, we will find out more about that. Obviously, pay attention to Nate Formo. If you go and follow him on social, all of his picks are always transparent right there on the spreadsheet. You can look at these, the ones that he've explained to you and more. They're all there updated and fully transparent. As you pointed out, like never pay for those. Never pay for those. Go find somebody reliable and go get them. So have some fun with that. Well, we will dig into the game itself a little bit more with our friend from the Denver Post, Troy Renck. Always have an opportunity to talk to Troy a couple times a week from the Post, and of course the host of the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. Troy, thanks so much for joining us. The Broncos have never won in Las Vegas, as we know. They are favorites, and actually for the first time, it feels like in a long time for the Denver Broncos, that's extending into being heavy favorites, obviously, in this game against the Raiders. You don't take anything for granted, obviously. But for the Broncos, this feels like one of those games that you absolutely not only have to have, but if you're going to be taken seriously, you have to beat these guys pretty handily. They are decimated by injuries, probably one of their top 2 running backs, missing linemen. We know about the quarterback situation. They basically have Max Crosby and Brock Bowers and a bunch of guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about the style points, but I understand what you're saying. When you just look at this game on paper, the Raiders are very beatable. But again, the problems the Broncos have had there, they've played bad Raiders teams there and not played well. And last year they had a lot on the line. Sean Payton put it on the line for them to finish with a winning record, and they got their ears boxed. But this is a different Raiders team. While they continue to play hard for Antonio Pierce, as you mentioned, they are just so limited offensively. Not having a quarterback, maybe it's going to be Shedeur Sanders next year, but not having a quarterback puts them at a huge disadvantage. They're dead last in running the football. And then defensively, they don't get takeaways. They don't rush the passer. I mean, when you look at them defensively, Sean, they look very similar to Atlanta, a team that's injured and a team that doesn't pressure the passer. So to Nate's point about, man, could they blow them out? They could if it all fell. If it was at home, I'd 100% pick them to blow them out. But this is a game, when you look at Denver's schedule, if they want to be a playoff team, you have to win this game, because if you lose it, now you're going to probably have to win at Cincinnati. You're probably going to have to beat Kansas City the last game of the season. It's set up for you to beat the Raiders, the Colts, and the Browns. And then if you lose to the Chargers now on Thursday night, oh, well, who cares? But then you're in position to go forward with the Bengals and Chiefs. If you lose this game, now you would have a must-win game against Bengals and Chiefs, and I don't like that. I don't like that scenario at all, especially there's no reason to lose to the Raiders. Not this year, not anywhere, not this year, not anywhere. They got to beat the Raiders. Come on now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it feels like. And look, they do have a couple of weapons. I do want to actually get back to the Shedeur Sanders stuff too as well. But when you look at Max Crosby, 15 and a half sacks in his career against the Broncos, and that's only in 11 games, and he did have 2 in their previous one. Crosby's the kind of guy that even on a team that is inferior and decimated, he's one of the few players that can simply mess your game up. And for the Broncos, we've seen him do it over and over and over again. Have you seen enough from the Broncos offensive line to feel that they can contain at least everybody else, so Nick's best to pay attention to Crosby and maybe let the rest of it go? Or is the fact that this team and this player was enough of a problem just a month and change ago that you probably have to be just as careful of him as you always have?
You have to be cognizant of him. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer against them. I mean, he just writes a diary of havoc. Not unlike Josh Jacobs.
1.5 sacks a game.
I mean, again, yeah, he's
crazy.
He's like Reggie White meets Von Miller in his prime. I mean, he's just, and they're meaningful sacks too. But for me, you got to chip him. You cannot let him beat you. To your point, when you talked about it feels like the team's Brock Bowers and Max Crosby. Statistically, it is. So you can't walk out of this game and somehow get upset because he had a strip sack and Brock Bowers, goes off for 115 yards and 2 scores. Like, that just can't happen. And so you got to chip Max Crosby. You got to make it difficult. Get the ball out of Bo's hands at times. Don't put him in harm's way, scrambling to that side. Now, again, Crosby moves around, so he makes it a little more difficult. But the Broncos' pass blocking has improved dramatically as the season's advanced, partly as the play calling with Sean Payton and Nix is fitting together better. But you can't let Max Crosby beat you. So whether you chip him with Adam Troutman, Nate Atkins, whether it's even Lucas Kroll, whatever that decision is, you cannot let him get loose on you. And that's why you got to keep an eye on the third down back, whether that's Javonte or Audric Estime, and you've got to keep an eye on the tight end like a Nate Atkins, who's going to be over Crosby, I would guess, on multiple cases.
Yeah, and when you look at Bowers on the other side, and I understand that the offense is pretty hobbled, but Bowers leads all tight ends in yardage, in receptions. Talking about receptions, he has 89 on or targets, 89 on the year. That's 10 more than Travis Kelce in targets. When you're talking about receptions, the only player in the NFL that has more catches than Brock Bowers is Jamar Chase, and he only has 3. When you go into the advanced statistics, when you're talking about guys that are the first reads and still targets, Brock Bowers leads all receivers in that. He basically has become the Raiders offense. On the bright side for the Broncos, who have had such challenges in defending the tight end over the years, the tight end position in the win over the Panthers actually did get 106 yards and 2 touchdowns out of their tight ends. But otherwise, the only touchdowns they've allowed was the one against Atlanta. They get one there, and then you're talking about a situation where this team has done much better against the tight ends this year. What's been the focus of that? How have they been able to be so much better?
Well, they're getting pressure on the passer without having to blitz. Even though they do bring pressure, they have the ability to get pressure with 4. You have 2 really good corners in coverage, a great corner in Surtain and a good one in Riley Moss. That has helped. And so part of it is just the way that the pieces of the puzzle fit. Now, again, do I want to see Cody Barton trapped in coverage against Brock Bowers consistently? I do not. I mean, he's made some nice plays in the passing game, but that's where the mismatches can be. You have to be careful that I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Surtain on Bowers at times. He certainly has the size and the length to do it. I'm not saying he's going to travel with him like a top receiver, but there was a time last week, I'm pretty sure I saw Surtain playing middle linebacker. Like they're moving him around in that star position. So I would think, why has it been better against tight ends? It really comes down to you stop the run, teams get more predictable. As they get more predictable, you get better pressure. And as you get better pressure, coverage gets better. When you can't get pressure in this league, it's hard to cover well, and teams then isolate mismatches. But Bowers is a problem. He's on pace for 119 catches and 1,200 yards. But for all the people who say, oh, the Broncos could have taken him and gone with Zach Wilson at quarterback, miss me with that. That is idiotic. They had to start over with a first-round quarterback. We're not doing any more reclamation projects, and I like Zach Wilson. I advocated to keeping him on the team. I would have traded him at the deadline, but I don't want to hear they could have had Bowers and Zach Wilson. Stop. Look yourself in the mirror, and then walk away from the mirror and punch yourself in the face, because that makes no sense.
No, it really doesn't. And I get it because, if Bo Nix continues the way he goes, obviously it's going to be down to Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Brock Bowers as the offensive rookie of the year. And the truth of the matter is it might end up being Bowers over both the quarterbacks, but it's still
no chance.
You don't think? Still a quarterback's award?
I mean, again, I don't say no chance. I would be shocked if it's not a quarterback, even if because Bowers is going to set every rookie record ever.
He might.
He's supposed to set them now.
Mm-hmm.
With like 7 games. I just don't. Unless Jaden Daniels is hurt or Nix gets hurt, I don't know how a quarterback doesn't win it. But you're not crazy in mentioning Bowers in that vein just because his numbers are going to be insane. Could he win it if they go? What are they going to go 4-13?
Right.
I mean, that's the problem. I mean, like, it's almost a certainty the Commanders are going to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Broncos have a really good shot. I just can't see voters taking a tight end over 2 rookie quarterbacks that are going to lead their team to the playoffs.
Yeah, even though, Brock Bowers might be doing an Ernie Banks kind of thing here with no quarterbacks throwing to him on a bad team, setting every tight end record you possibly can for a rookie. And yeah, it just feels as if the Broncos take care of the football. The Raiders simply don't have enough to outscore them. To me, this feels like one of the situations that we've seen Bo Nix in this latter part of the season thus far, where he's taken excellent control of the ball. He makes sure that there haven't been turnovers. The turnover possible type of throws have gone down. It feels like if we see the same thing from Bo Nix that we have in the last couple of weeks, the Broncos should more or less have this in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about Nix is that, last 7 weeks, 13 touchdowns, 2 picks. He takes care of the ball. And that's encouraging for a young guy. Now, as he can, and he had a very grown-up answer, Sean, on Wednesday when I was out there about why are you playing better? What's going on? And he basically said, he was kind of giving the NFL too much credit. And that happens when I covered MLB. Guys would do that all the time. Like, oh, I got to throw my nastiest pitch, and I got to swing harder than I've ever swung. And in doing that, you get out of the player who you are. And Nix is realizing like he's an elite athlete. He's in the league for a reason. And part of this issue is the game is slowing down because he and Sean Payton are in rhythm as a quarterback and play caller. And as the game slows down, he processes faster, and then his footwork gets better and his mechanics are better. So that's why the turnovers are going down. He's more comfortable. So what I would hope is Sean Payton resists the gravitational pull to say, man, Nix is going well. Let's go back to 40, 45 dropbacks. Stay in the honey spot right here. 30, 35 pass attempts. Run him, get him back on the ground a little bit, but don't get caught up in the numbers thinking that, man, if he throws 30 times, what would it look like at 45 times? Because that's when they've run into trouble. They don't have the weapons for that, and that's where turnovers come about. So I think they're in a really good spot here. It's a good matchup. Sean Payton's a matchup coach. Ever since that first month, it feels like he's kind of figured out who Bo Nix is, and they have a really good relationship. Off to the side on Wednesday, they were talking to each other, slapping five. Like, you could just see it developing, the trust they have in each other that is, and it manifests itself now on the field.
the running game goes. So let's talk about that. You and I both had the feeling that Audric Estime was going to be a big opportunity.
I was right on that one.
Yeah, we missed.
I was like, is he going to get a carry? I'm telling everyone, play him. And he gets like 3 garbage time carries.
Right. Is the sort of hot hand approach that Sean Payton seems to be doing, although some of it is obviously the substitutions and the system that he's putting together. Is that approach still the right approach, or would you like to see a much more clear commitment to the running game, especially in the power side?
I hate the hot hand approach because
I do too.
It doesn't allow a guy to get into rhythm. The one guy, but then you end up this one player who could be a very good weapon for you. He's just basically on ice for 3 quarters. I mean, you saw it with Justin Fields last night, like, trying to bring a guy in. I mean, it's quarterback. It's a little bit apples to oranges, but hot hand approach is, for me, a way more of a college thing than a pro thing. That just decide on a guy and get roles classified. And to me, Estime should be the starter and Javonte should be the 3rd down back. And I understand the pushback. Look at what Javonte did last weekend. And it feels like he had an amazing game. He had like 9 carries for 59 yards. That's what Estime is capable of doing. And again, I say that, and Javonte Williams had the most important run of the game, that 14-yard touchdown. But I would go with Estime. I would continue to give Estime, because the problem is with the hot hand, as soon as the veteran, this is what coaches are, and I coached forever. My dad was a coach, so I get this. But as soon as you see a veteran do something, we got to trust him. Trust the veteran. We trust him. And here's the rookie who's way better physically, way better athletically, and it's like, then you just end up, every little thing that guy does, you psychoanalyze practically. Like, it looked like his head was in the wrong place. His one finger didn't have the ball. It's like, stop, enough.
Yeah.
Play Estime. Start with Estime. And I don't know. Again, I was shocked the way they came out and did it. And with the Raiders not getting pressure, they might say the same thing, like, hey, this is a game to get Javonte going again. For me, the upside of Estime, if you're going to try to be a playoff team and do damage in the playoffs, I want to play that card. I just want to play that card. And I'm not saying Javonte doesn't have a role. He does. He's a 3rd down back, and I give him some carries. And Sean Payton's got to stop worrying about mixing in 3 backs. If Jalil gets a carry, fine. If he doesn't, who cares?
And do you have to keep force-feeding 3 or 4 carries a game to Marvin Mims?
Yeah, I mean, Mims, I don't mind it because it plants a seed.
Right.
I don't like it because there's like, we got to get Jalil in. No, if you're running Mims is Jalil. They're the same guy for me.
Right.
So, but I'm not worried about if Jalil gets in. It stinks. It stinks for him, but I'm not sitting there worried because 3 is impossible to keep fed. 2 you can feed. And Sean Payton admitted that. You can feed 2, and I would just start that feeding at the table with Audric Estime. This is me personally. And it's not a bias. I just watch them and think, that guy's got such a high upside. But again, once a veteran does anything well, you know how it is, Sean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all you have to do is watch Michael Malone over the last couple of years with the Nuggets. You know exactly what you're talking about. But the point you make is interesting because I think when you talk about those 3, right, 2 of them are under contract for the next few years. That's Estime and McLaughlin. Javonte Williams is a free agent at the end of this year. And as we know, running backs have a tough time getting second contracts. The last one for you Troy, Shedeur Sanders effect. You brought it up. I'm of the firm belief, and I've been making calls, and I think it's backed up with a lot of common sense and a lot of evidence as well, that the Raiders have Shedeur Sanders targeted as their primary goal in the draft. Moreover, they're one of the teams that Deion Sanders is clearly comfortable with Shedeur going to. He's not going to pull a full Jack Elway, Archie Manning type of situation like we saw in those drafts, but he definitely would like to steer it. He thinks well of Mark Davis. That in Vegas, Deion can get back and forth there easily enough. And every time the Raiders lose, Shedeur Sanders goes on his social media and goes, thank God. Because he knows they're in a log jam, right? And having to find a way to keep losing, they've got a chance to get him, and he doesn't end up with, say, the Giants or something to that effect. The Raiders may not be in full-on tank mode, but given their injuries and their situation, can they kind of do it without actually doing it?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to keep losing games because they don't have a quarterback right now. I mean, Minshew, I always thought would be a good backup quarterback, but he hasn't fit this year. He's turning the ball over. And I would just say this about Shedeur. be careful what you wish for with the Raiders. Now, again, Tom Brady being involved might change some of that, but going to the AFC West right now with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Bo Nix, I'm just saying, if I'm him, I would rather be with the New York Giants or the Dallas Cowboys on that side. Now, again, the Giants is a tough one because they might have a coaching change. And again, if you want your dad around, it's almost impossible to get back and forth from Colorado to New York to watch games all the time. It's just not nearly as convenient as Vegas. But Shedeur Sanders is going to be the first quarterback taken. I think we can all agree on that. And the issue of whether I thought, when Michael Irvin's coming on Cowherd and saying that his sources are saying Deion would go to the Cowboys and coach him if they get Shedeur, he's getting that from Deion, right? We all agree. Or Bucky, the son, he's not just making that up. He was in Boulder that Saturday at the CU game, but they're in cap hell if they trade Dak Prescott. They're going to eat $104 million. That's worse than Russell Wilson. And secondly, I can't believe JuJu Lewis would commit without knowing. I talked to Joe Klatt briefly yesterday about this, and he's just like, he can't see any scenario on why JuJu would commit without thinking Deion's going to be there. Because that recruitment of that kid, if you paid attention to it, it was very detail-oriented. Nothing was throwing stuff against the wall. I mean, he's here, 80 million steps, and you're going to tell me he's just going to, bail on USC, bail on Georgia, and not know that Deion's going to stay? I think Deion's staying for at least another year, if not two. I mean, and getting this kid, I would expect that they have a chance now to have a foundation building and be good. So I think it's more about Shedeur, not Deion. And if Shedeur goes to Vegas, it'd be great for fans of CU to be able to see him easier. But I'm just saying, you look at the last 25 years or so, it's been a tough sledding.
Well, we'll see if the Broncos can make it a little easier on the Raiders by handing them a loss and moving them up in the draft status this week. And if you have a chance before the game, make sure you download the latest Broncos podcast with Troy Renck, or check it out on YouTube, talking about Bo Nix, of course, and why now, of course, he's right in the mix of Rookie of the Year after the terrific performance of the Falcons and everything that he's done over these weeks as he's gotten better and better. Troy does a great job of breaking it down. It's a terrific podcast. Make sure you have a little bit of listening before the Broncos and the Raiders on Sunday. Troy, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much. Looking forward to talking about this on Monday, where the Broncos playoff picture will be brought far more clearly into focus after Sunday. Thanks.
Appreciate it, my friend. Take care. Have a great rest of the show.
All right. Thanks so much, Troy Renck, joining us from the Denver Post. And it talked a little bit about Julian Lewis and the Buffs. And so we have an opportunity to go to our friend Arran Andersen from Fox 31 and the host of Colorado Sports Night, one of the hosts of that great program over on Channel 2, still keeping the magazine status, Sports Talk magazine, alive on a daily basis. And Arran, thank you for joining us. You heard a little bit from Troy Renck there about the recruiting and the signing of Julian Lewis, who makes that announcement nationally on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN. Decommits from USC, goes to Colorado. And I think what Troy suggested, I think it's 2 years. I don't think Julian Lewis leaves the options, not only leaves Southern Cal, obviously the situation changed there, but he had offers from Georgia. We know where Georgia is generally ranked. He had offers from Indiana. By the way, they're number 5 in the country. He's not coming to Colorado, I think, unless he knows that Deion Sanders is staying for 2 years. So there's sort of two stories there, right? When the Buffs get the best high school quarterback in the country, the idea that the Buffaloes are back is pretty hard to get to shake. Moreover, the idea that Deion Sanders can't recruit high school kids, also difficult to shake. But maybe the biggest story of the bunch, can we shut up with where's Deion going at the end of this year? He's already there. He's staying in Boulder.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that was my question as we kind of got deeper and deeper into this season. Of course, there was all the buzz coming from his former teammate Michael Irvin about the Dallas Cowboys. We heard the Raiders and the potential that Deion would follow Shedeur there, if indeed Mark Davis was able to scoop him up in the draft. But, my question the whole time was, okay, is there something there that gives us a sense that Deion is more committed than just, hey, I like it here and I got a kickstand down? This certainly does it. And you're absolutely right. I don't think this young man would commit to Colorado if there was any question in his mind if Deion was going to be with the Buffs next year and moving forward, certainly. So, hey, a great first step, certainly, for us as we look forward to next year. This is boy, this season is starting to heat up. You talk about what JuJu brings to the table, and there's other kids that are going to follow him. I think the future in Boulder is bright.
Yeah, obviously we know about when you have that addition, and Lewis said he will be graduating in the fall, so he can immediately get to Colorado early in the spring and start everything and be ready to hit the ground running. Because as Deion Sanders said about a week before, sort of telegraphing the Lewis commitment when addressing the idea that he's not great at recruiting high school players. I actually thought he did a great job of breaking that down. And Arran, I would curious about your thoughts, even though it was about a week ago, now viewed through this lens. He talked about hitting the transfer portal and recruiting fewer high school players. He did focus it like, well, we brought in X amount 2 years ago. We brought in X amount this year. He said the point though is with the transfer portal, they can come in and they can come out. So you see guys that they join a program, they don't get to play and they transfer out. So he said, when we're going to go get high school kids, we get high school kids. Do we expect them to step in and play? And referred to Jordan Seaton, of course, the top tackle prospect in the country last year that they landed, and immediately became the blindside starting tackle for the Buffaloes, and has been pretty darn good as a true freshman. And the point was, Sanders, I thought, was actually a bit ahead of the curve here when explaining what other coaches don't. Like, basically, why am I going to grab high school players for somebody else's program in a year? I'm going to grab guys who will step in and play right now. And if they can't, I'll just go try to find some more next year, or I'll poach the ones that you guys got that didn't play for you. And I think right now, even though people 2 years ago looked at it and said, what's he doing? This is crazy. Turns out he was crazy like a fox. This is the way to build a top 25 program in today's college football.
Yeah. Welcome to the new blueprint, right? I think you're right. The status quo, the old timers, the way we once looked at college football, and certainly the landscape of this sport has certainly changed. In Colorado, and Deion Sanders are at the forefront of that. He's proven that within the span of 2 seasons, he can take a team that was arguably one of the worst in all of Division I, certainly Power 5, and put them in the national championship conversation, the college football conversation. And, I think it's genius. There are a lot of coaches out there scratching their heads going, wow, this works. And conversely, you're seeing coaches across the NCAA landscape say, you know what, I don't want any part of this because this isn't my forte. Tony Bennett is a name that comes to mind from Virginia, who walked away from the the Who's basketball season a month before it tipped off because he realized that this kind of new this new genre of college athletics just didn't kind of fit him. So look, Deion obviously has a very good idea in terms of what it takes to attract talent, where to find talent, and what it takes to put that talent together and produce a winning football team. And we're really seeing this evolve in real time. It's been fun to watch him work. And yeah, I think you have to tip your cap to him that this is certainly the wave of the future, and he's at the cusp of it.
I mean, nobody less than Nick Saban admitted that played a part in his retirement, that this was a landscape he was neither prepared nor interested in navigating. And now he finds himself with his very nice tailored suit sitting on football fields pregame with Pat McAfee in a tank top and gym shorts and wondering what the heck happened to my life. And so, there are a lot of people that have been kind of upended by it. But what I'm impressed with Sanders is sort of the branding, because I've talked about this a little bit. The NIL money obviously is a big game changer. Yes. But Colorado does not have the NIL ability of a Southern Cal, with which Lewis decommitted to. They certainly don't have one of Georgia, of any SEC program, of any Big Ten program. They don't have that, and they're probably not going to have that. But Sanders has been able to make his impact personally and his ability to get attention for the program enough of a compensation for these players that while they are getting compensated in NIL for sure, Sanders has been able to show them that I can get you visible enough that you'll be able to make that up in the way you want. And I think that ability, given the fact that we know the University of Colorado simply doesn't have the wherewithal to put together the kind of offers that a lot of those schools that are in the top 25 and regularly there are, I think that's an underrated part of what he's done at Colorado. He is basically punching above his weight class.
Yeah, without question. And all you have to do is tune in to tomorrow's game on Channel 31, Fox 31, to see this, because during the commercial breaks, you're going to see Coach Prime in commercials. And because he's able to garner that kind of attention, look, nobody in college football moves the meter like Deion Sanders. And if you're in this program, you are going to be seen. And you're going to have the potential to earn NIL dollars on a national scale with nationally known companies known worldwide who have deep pockets. And while certainly the NIL kitty at Colorado doesn't compare to the Ohio States, the Texases, the Georgias, that's the back end of it, where those programs may have dollars via the booster system. Colorado is going to be able to match that by virtue of what you can glean because you're now a nationally known figure. So it's just fascinating to watch all this unfold.
Yeah, and I think part of that that's interesting too is because you talk about those Big Ten teams, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Georgias, the Bamas. Their programs are predicated on we win national championships or bust. Yeah. What Sanders has done that I think is really canny, that I don't know if he's gotten enough credit for, besides a little bit of hyperbole right when he was hired, which he has consistently backed off of ever since. For the most part, his brand isn't, well, we're competing for national championships, but that's not the purpose. The purpose of our program is we're going to get you, the player, ready to go to the NFL level. That's what you get at the University of Colorado. You look at the coaching staff that he's assembled that is basically all NFL guys. That's part of what the pitch is as well. It's not just me. You're getting all these guys with NFL experience that know how to get you to the next level. For so many players, that can be a remarkable enticement because the best of the best, they're not playing all 4 years anymore. They may never get a national championship. They understand when you have transfer portals and NILs, that's gravy. Your objective is to get paid while you can, first and foremost, and two, make it to the NFL where you can get generational money. And Sanders' brand is, yeah, national championships are great, and we're definitely going for them. But when you come to Colorado, our focus is to get you playing on Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you're a parent and you're on the phone with Coach Sanders, your kid is a 4 or 5 star recruit, and he says, beyond me taking care of Junior while he's in Boulder, I'm going to put him in the best position possible to play at the next level. And let's not kid ourselves. Every kid who's had that conversation is looking at playing in the NFL. You've got a guy who's been on all sides of this, right? He's played in the NFL. He's had kids who've been top recruits, and now he's the guy recruiting them. So the sales pitch is solid, and the proof is really going to be in the pudding this year. You know, last year, obviously, we didn't see any of his kids advance on through the draft to the next level, but we know there's going to be a lot of kids from Colorado who are going to get drafted, who are going to have opportunities to play in the NFL and to be successful. And the fact that he's got coaches and assistant coaches and people within that program who've played there, who've coached there, who know what it takes. I mean, it's basically an incubator, right? The other college coaches are going to come in and say, hey, when you come to Ohio State, by golly, we're going to compete for national championships. Colorado's saying, hey, not only will we give you a chance to play on the biggest stage, we're going to make sure you get all the coaching, all the intangibles needed so that when you make it to the NFL, you're going to be playing for Super Bowls and you're looking at a long career there.
Yeah, it's inverted in a way. When you talk about sort of the old approach to college football, it's basically saying, you know, you want to the old pitch, and I'll just use Notre Dame, for example, right? Come to Notre Dame and be part of this long line of champions, right? And that's what you're supposed to be part of that long line. Colorado's pitch is basically, nah, we're actually here for you. We're here for you to make your name. That's what we do. And I think for a more modern player, a more modern college football, that's an appealing sales pitch because let's face it, college football now college sports is basically free agency every year. And so I think that they've positioned themselves in a good spot, but still have to keep winning. And they are now taking on a Kansas team, as you pointed out, on Fox 31 on Saturday at 1:30 is the kickoff. Colorado, the only team in all of college football that will have each and every one of their games nationally televised, which is great, right, for exposure, but it also means you need to win. Kansas is 4-6, but don't look at that. Kansas was one of the 2 teams, along with Utah, that was favored to win the Big 12 coming into the season. Now they're finally playing like it. When you look at Kansas of late, they have won 3 of their last 4, and it hasn't been against nobodies. They lost by only 2 points to Kansas State, which was ranked 16th at the time when they played them. They knocked off Iowa State 2 weeks ago. Iowa State was ranked 17th, and then they knocked off BYU last week that was ranked 6th. Kansas is an extremely dangerous team, and Colorado can't be looking ahead towards a Big 12 championship game or to Oklahoma State the week after that. They have to take care of business right now against a Kansas team that is playing the best football it's played all year.
And they're going to have to do it at Arrowhead Stadium, which, from what I'm told, is very close to a sellout at this point. It's going to be a raucous crowd. And you touched on it, Sean. This is a 4-6 football team. 5 of those losses are single score. And oh, by the way, the other loss to TCU was by 11 points. So while they haven't, generated the wins I think many expected when they were the preseason pick to be one of the contenders for the Big 12 title, this is a team that's played very close football games, despite the fact that their quarterback, Jalen Daniels, had 8 turnovers. I think it was 5 interceptions, 3 fumbles in their first 5 games. So you've seen this team get better as the season goes along. And I think it's easy for everybody to look at the record and say, well, gosh, they're a 4-6 team. Well, it's going to sound goofy for me to say it, but they're a very, very good 4-6 football team that runs the football. They average about 200 yards per game. And we know in the 2 losses that Colorado had, that was to Nebraska and Kansas State, they gave up 4.6 yards per carry in those games. So, we've seen the Buffs exposed trying to stop the running game, and it's going to be kind of a strength on strength situation. Colorado, now one of the leaders in the Big 12 at stopping the run versus the team that is the number 1 rushing team in the conference.
Yeah, well, they stopped the number 1 rushing team in the country when they played UCF, but you're right. Devin Neal, 926 yards on the year, 12 touchdowns. And you think, wow, that's a big part of the rushing offense. He only has half of their rushing touchdowns. They have 24 rushing touchdowns on the year. And they do have guys that get after the quarterback. Dean Miller and Jerome Robinson have 5.5 sacks apiece. JB Brown with 4. These guys can get after the quarterback. And we know that the Shooter Sanders and the Buffs can be vulnerable to sacks. I feel like if the Buffs can get out in this game early, and force Kansas to back off the run, they'll be in good shape. They have done that on occasion, but it hasn't been a regular thing for the Buffs. This can't be one of those games where they warm up and then by halftime turn it on. They've got to get going from the opening kick.
Yeah, I spoke with Joel Klatt, who's Fox Sports lead college football analyst last week, and he pointed to 2 issues he's had with this Colorado football team throughout this season. And one of them would be slow starts. The other one is clock management when the game is tight. And, you look at this game and you say, yeah, Colorado has got to get off to a fast start, cannot play from behind, cannot allow Kansas to run the football. And the Jayhawks are a team that's shown an ability to keep games close. So if this is a close game, boy, you talk about clock management, controlling timeouts, just situational coaching. Those are all things that really could come into the fold as this game gets down to the wire. I think it's going to be a very tight game. Odds makers list Colorado as a 3-point favorite. Boy, in that environment against a team, as you said, that can get after the quarterback, I think this is one of those games where you say, boy, Colorado's really going to have to play not only mistake free, they're going to have to start fast, but when it comes to crunch time, this coaching staff is going to have to make good decisions because as we saw last week at BYU, this Kansas team knows how to find a way to win.
Yeah, and they do make good decisions late, and that's been part of the reason they've played so well. So we'll find out. Of course, that game on Fox 31 at 1:30 on Saturday. Arran Andersen joining us, of course, the host of Colorado Sports Night over on Channel 2 and at Fox 31, sports anchor there. So, Arran, always good to talk to you. Looking forward to this, and, of course, the Broncos as well, and hopefully we'll touch base soon. Thank you for the time.
Hey. Really appreciate you having me on. Have a great weekend. And yeah, what a great weekend of football, right? We got CSU traveling to Fresno State, Colorado, at Kansas, and of course the Buffaloes in Vegas. The Broncos in Vegas.
Yep. Looking forward to all of it. Thank you so much. Take care, Arran.
Okay. You too, my man.
All right. Thanks. It is a football Friday, and nobody does football Fridays like we do at Mile High Sports and at Mile High Sports Today, because we'll take you from the pros to the preps. And we have an opportunity to continue there as we've gone from Troy Renck with the Broncos and Arran Andersen with the Buffaloes. Now we talk to Dan Mohrmann, the editor-in-chief of Colorado Preps, coloradopreps.com. And grab that Colorado Preps app while you're right there. Powered by Ford and our friends at Whataburger with the scoreboard, because the football playoffs are in full swing. Dan, thank you for joining us. Quarterfinals in the bigger classifications, semifinals in the smaller classifications. Obviously, big games across the board. Where do you want to start?
I mean, we can go from top to bottom, Sean. We've got a full slate of games this weekend that are just going to be really, really fun to track. So, like you mentioned, please go ahead and download that Colorado Preps app, powered by Ford, driven by Ford. We will have all the scores on the Whataburger scoreboard tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, will be the scoreboard show with Kevin Schaefer. You'll get to hear from winning coaches. And all across Colorado Preps this weekend, you are going to have more football coverage than any other site in the state. And we will start. We'll start with Mountain Vista. And the reason we want to start here, Sean, is you've seen the early work as I have.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of information coming out about Mountain Vista quarterback Austin Majeski. Not information as much as just a great story to tell in the next issue of Mile High Sports Magazine. But
coming soon.
Yeah, this kid is unreal. He's already the career leader in completions, passing yards, and passing touchdowns. If he can put up 4 passing touchdowns tonight against Fairview, who's also undefeated, which makes this just a great matchup across the board, he will tie former Fairview quarterback Aiton Atkinson's single season career mark of 56. So I can't think of a better way for him to tie that mark, or maybe even beat that mark, than doing it against Fairview, who's undefeated in the 5A quarterfinals. A win here gets them into the semis, where they'll see the winner of Ralston Valley and Legend.
Yeah, and Fairview having an opportunity to basically protect that record from their great quarterback as well. I mean, how do you see this one breaking down? Obviously, you know, Mountain Vista is ranked 2nd, Fairview is ranked 7th, but Fairview is unbeaten, and they plastered Chatfield 42-15 last week. Obviously, when you're talking about a quarterback like Majeski, you do have an advantage, but I don't think this is going to be as simple as Mountain Vista just rolling these guys, is it?
That's always tough to say. I mean, the game that I always look back to is just what they did against Valor Christian, and I don't know how that doesn't give you the confidence that there's no one in the state, maybe aside from a Cherry Creek, that can hang with you at this point. So Valor Christian, by a lot of metrics and a lot of other people's opinions, were maybe the 3rd or 4th best team in the 5A class. And that wasn't even a contest. That was Mountain Vista was the first team to ever put up 60 points against Valor. So it's, you know, they have a high flying offense, but it's not one dimensional. And that's something that when I was interviewing a little bit of that staff for this story, and also just talking to everyone associated with that program, they want to stress they can do it all. They can run the ball. They're generating, I think, 133 rushing yards as a team per game. They play very, very sound and technical defense. And then, of course, you've got Majeski. He doesn't like throwing to one guy. I mentioned it in my story, and it's the one line I'll give away. His favorite target is the open guy.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of see with that's Bo Nix style, right? Completed to 9 different receivers last week. So we'll find out more about that. The 5A classification, exciting stuff, even on the other side of that bracket. Cherry Creek, of course, as you mentioned, in Erie. And how about the other quarter, Columbine and Valor Christian? Wow. I mean, there is some good stuff going on in that 5A, as you would expect, but also those big names you expect as well. Well, let's move on down to a 4A, where Dakota Ridge is the top seed. They will take on my Ponderosa Mustangs, and we're just going to leave it there unless we talk next week and Ponderosa happens to pull off the upset of the year. But the game that we do want to take a look at is basically on the other side of that, where the winner would take on the winner of that Dakota Ridge Ponderosa game. That's Palmer Ridge and Broomfield.
Yeah, and that's I'll be up at Don Breeze Stadium in Monument tonight for that one. And it's funny because these two teams, they were number 1 and number 2 in our early Colorado Preps football rankings of the season. They both suffered a loss that knocked them down a bit. If you look a little deeper, I can't even really say that they were bad losses. You have Broomfield, who lost to Erie, who is now a 5A program and who's in the 5A quarterfinals after knocking off Pine Creek a week ago. And then Palmer Ridge lost to Mesa Ridge, who by every account is a top 5 team in the class, even though they're the 7 seed on the bracket. Mesa Ridge has been fantastic all year. I think their 3 losses were to Dakota Ridge, Montrose, and Pueblo West, who are 1, 2, and 3 on the 4A bracket. So you can't really call Mesa Ridge a bad loss for Palmer Ridge. This is a different Bears team than what I'm used to seeing. This is a team that's more heavy or more reliant on the run. They don't throw the ball as much. Starting quarterback Carson Campbell, he only has 660 passing yards on the season. When you're talking about a program that had guys like Ty Evans and Luke McAllister who were throwing for thousands and thousands of yards through the course of the season, it's very rare. So Palmer Ridge is going to have to rely on the run game, control possession, keep that Broomfield offense off the field. Darian Jackson, he's been an efficient passer, throwing for almost 2,000 yards this year. So if the Bears can control the clock, they stand a chance. But Broomfield is big, they're physical, and they have athletes all over the field.
And keep in mind on that other side of the bracket, Montrose in action with Mesa Ridge this weekend. You've talked about Montrose a couple times as maybe being, and I'm paraphrasing you, but maybe pound for pound the best football program in the state this year.
Definitely, I would say the most physical and probably the toughest up front in the trenches.
So we'll find out where those goes. Now we'll zip our down to the 3A, where there's still the quarterfinals. Let's look at the Pomona and Windsor.
Yeah, and Windsor's been a bit of a funny story this year because they lost Kyle Phelps, their starting quarterback, a couple weeks ago, and a lot of us thought that might have spelled the end of their year, but they've been playing very, very well. Mason Moore and Adrian, I don't even know how to say this last name, Krasinskian. I just need to know how to spell it, Sean, but they were fantastic last week in the playoff opener against Mountain View. They each ran for over 100 yards. They combined to score 3 touchdowns. That was a big 36-0 win for the Wizards. Like I mentioned with Palmer Ridge, if they can run the ball and they can control everything, then they might be able to pull off this perceived upset against Pomona, who's played extremely well all year long. Their 3 losses were to 2 of the top 3 teams in 4A. And also the number 1 team in 3A in Thompson Valley. So Emmett Munson has just been a fantastic running back for Pomona all season long. That's a game that we will have coverage of, and you'll be able to read all about what happens tomorrow from our friend Dennis Ployce at Jeffco School Athletics.
Yeah, I mean, Windsor not limited, at least in their opening round. They smoked Mountain View 36-0. So I mean, coming in hot for sure. That will be a pretty exciting quarter. And now we go to the smaller classifications in which they're already into the semis. We've talked about one of these teams before in 2A. We've talked about the Classical Academy. They'll be taking on Basalt.
And Sean, it's going to be a long day tomorrow. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to jump in a car, and I'm going to make the drive all over to the West Slope to check this game out.
Like how much? I'm curious. How much caffeine do you ingest over the course of the day? And what's your preferred? Is it just straight coffee? Do you have like coffee and then a Red Bull, and then, or you put the Red Bull in the coffee? Or, I mean, how do you even do this?
I'm not a big Red Bull guy. I don't do energy drinks, so it's all coffee. What it'll be tomorrow is about a half a pot with some of that in a travel thermos as I jump in the car.
Do you mean like the Gatorade that they dump on winning coaches size pot?
No, I'm pretty controlled with what I make in the morning. I will say that. I'll probably stop somewhere. I'm going to take what I consider my scenic route. I'm going to go Highway 24 up through Breckenridge to get to I-70. So I'll stop in Breckenridge. I'll stop at Starbucks. I'll kind of reload there. And then from that point on, it's probably like convenience store, either hot coffee, or I like just some of the coffee drinks from like a Dunkin' Donuts or something that I can just snag, throw in a cooler, and have as I go.
Okay, that's impressive.
But a lot of caffeine. We're going to drink a lot of caffeine tomorrow.
But you are going to be you're headed to that game with Classical Academy at Basalt. What should we expect?
You should expect a game that, by all accounts, should be played next week. I'm not trying to take anything away from Wellington or Eaton. Those are 2 fantastic football teams. But if you would ask the totality of people who pay attention to 2A football, they would have told you that going into the playoffs, TCA should be the 1 seed, Basalt should be the 2 seed, and this should be a state championship match. This is a game worthy of being played in Pueblo next week. And because of that, that is part of the reason why I'm jumping in a car and making sure that I get eyes on it, because I think this is going to be a fantastic football game. I think it's going to be tough, physical. Basalt is just a heavy, heavy running team. They have 2 1,000-yard rushers on the roster. TCA can be a little explosive with their offense. They were down to Berthoud last week with 40 seconds left in the game and scored the game-winning touchdown. They went the length of the field and scored the game-winning touchdown with 2 seconds left to stay alive in the playoffs. So this is a team that, whenever they're down, you can't count them out. So I'm hoping and expecting this to be one of the top games of the entire weekend in all classifications.
Well, we'll go down to the lowest one. We'll look at the 1A semis as well. Lyman, the Badgers, coming in at 9-2. They'll take on Forge Christian. Forge Christian unbeaten, but then on top of that, there's unbeaten and then there's unbeaten. Since the playoffs started, here's how Forge Christian handled it. 42-0 over Yuma and then 41-0 over Meeker. Yikes.
And that's just when you're looking at the playoffs. This is a team that in the regular season was constantly trucking people. They were the homecoming game for my Manitou Mustang, so I went over to get eyes on Forge to see what would do, because it was Lyman head coach. I mean, it was what it was. It was Lyman head coach Mike O'Dwyer. I saw Mike early in the year, and he looked at me and he goes, "Have you seen Forge?" I said, "No," and he goes, "They're big and they're good." And so it's funny that this is a semifinal matchup. O'Dwyer gets to get eyes on them for the first time, but ever since then I've been paying attention, and they've just been a wrecking ball through 1A. I've been saying this is a 3A team that somehow slipped through the cracks and got into the 1A field, and I don't know if they can be stopped over the course of the next 2 weeks. You want to hope that a team like Lyman with championship pedigree can be prepared going into this, but it might just be Forge just might have enough horses, enough freaking Clydesdales to get this done.
The opponents this year against Forge have scored a grand total of 19 points. Forge has 8 games in which they have shut out their opponents and scored 40 or more, including a 62-0 win over Platte Canyon. That is remarkable. So, I mean, obviously we'll find out. But you're right. I think when you talk about if there's any school that sort of has the pedigree and the understanding and the ability, maybe it is this game. So that'll be a tremendous opportunity to kind of look at this one as well. Football.
And you can't really discount the other side of the bracket. I mean, Ray and Buena Vista are both very, very good football teams, and whoever earns the right to play the winner of this game, I don't want to assume Forge, because you can never count out a Mike O'Dwyer team, but
Ray's also unbeaten. They're 11-0 on the year.
Right. And they have talented skill players on that roster that are so fun to watch. So this is going to be one, regardless of what happens, the next 2 weeks of small school football are going to be some of the most fun that we have all year.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And of course, you want to make sure you follow Dan for all the latest. Go to coloradopreps.com. Grab that Colorado Preps app as well, driven by our friends at Ford, and check out the Whataburger scoreboard in near real time so you can have all of the playoffs in your pocket as they go along. Dan Mohrmann is the busiest, hardest working man in Colorado sports, I'll tell you, because as he mentioned the story about Austin Majewski for Mountain Vista, a little sneak peek, we'll be talking about that in the next Mile High Sports magazine, which, by the way, he and I both edit. So he's doing that too. So this guy, I don't know how he does it. I want half your energy, Dan, but I always appreciate talking to you. And it's Friday, and guess what? You have games to cover. So I'm going to let you go. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan Mohrmann, joining us from Colorado Preps. Folks, if you can find yourself another program in the Colorado sports market that handles Football Friday like this, they can go ahead and break down, Ray and Forge Christian and give you the matchups they've had against, any other school. I'll wait. Nobody does it like we do on Football Friday, from pros to going on campus to headed back to the high schools and preps. And nobody does it like Mile High Sports on a Football Friday. Nobody does it like Mile High Sports all the time, because we're live, we're local, we're independent, and we cover every single bit of it, every team, every day. That's what we do. Thanks so much to Nate Lundy for joining me, and of course, giving you all those picks this weekend. Go ahead and follow Nate on social and get all of his picks right there, sitting there on that spreadsheet link right there in his bio. Troy Renck from the Denver Post joins us. Check out his latest podcast, the Broncos Podcast with Troy Renck, the latest on the Broncos going into Vegas, trying to knock off the Raiders out there in Sin City for the first time ever and sweep the Raiders for the first time since 2017. Arran Andersen joined us from Fox 31. Monumental game for the Colorado Buffaloes, who are red hot and now feeling their oats a little bit after signing the top quarterback prospect in the country in Julian Lewis. And of course, you just got to hear about Dan Mohrmann breaking down every single one of the classifications in high school football happening over the course of this week. And guess what? We'll do it again on Monday. So for Danny Bailey producing everything, come on out and join us, by the way, number 38 for the Buffaloes game. I'll be out there. Danny's going to be out there. The guys from the SCO Show, Neil Apiro and Chase Howell are going to be out there. We're going to enjoy that game in the sunshine, 60 degrees in Denver in late November. Come out and watch the Buffs take on Kansas on the big screen. NMBR38.com for more. We will see you there. But for Danny Bailey, for everyone we talked about, and everyone here at Mile High Sports, thank you for watching us. Click subscribe. You know the drill. We'll be back at it again doing the exact same thing on Monday. Live, local, independent. You're in the right spot. This is Mile High Sports.